First of all, I want to thank GPSA for helping me to go to this conference by funding me and letting me have this opportunity to present my work. So what I'm going to present today is what I actually presented last week in Transportation Research Board of the National Academy of Sciences annual conference in DC. The title of the research is Can Regional Transportation Planning Organization Reduce Greenhouse Gas Emissions? I want to talk a little bit, like a minute, about the conference. The conference was the annual conference of Transportation Research Board of the National Academy of Sciences. Every year, this conference is held in Washington, D.C., January. This year, they had their 96th annual meeting. It's one of the most prestigious, important, probably the most important event for transportation and civil engineers all over the world. People travel to DC from all over the world. It was my fourth year that I was presenting at the conference, and all the four time I was funded by GPSA SRG grant. Okay, so the question is, why do we need to cut GHG emissions? As you know, greenhouse gas or GHG emissions are responsible for the increase in temperature, climate change, and global warming. So this organization, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, reported that to reduce the severe impacts of climate change, we need to limit the increase in temperature by 2050 by 2 degrees Celsius. It means that if the temperature of the Earth increases more than 2 degrees of Celsius by 2050, there would be a disaster. So how can we achieve that goal? The way that we can achieve that goal is by cutting, as this panel reported, if we cut GHG emissions between 40 to 70%, we can limit the increase in temperature in the world to 2 degrees Celsius. In the US, as you see, transportation is the second highest contributor to GHG emissions and climate change after electricity. It has 20-60% share of GHG emissions, transportation. So if we can reduce GHG emissions from transportation sector, we can make a lot of changes. So who's responsible for transportation planning regarding climate change in the US? So every urban area in the US, every urban area that has a population of more than 50,000 is required by federal law to have this organization named Metropolitan Planning Organizations, or MPOs. These organizations are responsible for planning for the future of the city, like the economic development, transportation development, transportation network construction of the city for the next probably 30 or 40 years of each urban area. And they are also responsible for climate change planning. In central New Mexico, they have the Mid-Regional Council of Governments, or MSTERCOG, which is the regional planning organization for the city of, for the central New Mexico. Before 2013, there was no climate change policy plan in New Mexico regarding transportation. And it's the same in a lot of US urban areas, a lot of states. There's no plan, there's no policy how to deal with climate change in transportation. Starting 2013, US Department of Transportation sponsored some projects all over the US. One of them was the Central New Mexico Climate Change Planning Project, which our team at UNM, my professor and I, we started collaborating with regional MPO, Regional Metropolitan Planning Organization, to plan for the future of central New Mexico, to come up with strategies that can decrease the GHG emissions to to the highest possible point. The project started in January 2014 and was finished in September of 2015. As I said, okay, that's, as you see, that's the central New Mexico area where we were focused on. As I said, the aim was to identify the strategies that could be included in central New Mexico's future transportation plan. We look at strategies like a smart growth, transit improvement, signal timing, bridge construction, and pricing. We looked at these strategies and modeled their effect on GHG emissions. For example, in terms of a smart growth, we looked at how if we focus the future development of the city in certain areas, or what if we add some other BRT lanes to the area, what if we increase the parking pricing, the gas price, what if we widen the bridges over the Rio Grande, and what if we ease traffic? What would be the effect of all these strategies in the future of the area? And the question was, as I said earlier at the beginning, we need 40 to 70% reduction in GHG emissions by 2050 to limit the global warming to 2 degrees of Celsius. But could we do that? The answer is no. In the project that we had, the project was planning for 2040, central New Mexico for 2040 of the area. So we looked at all the feasible strategies, transit, signal timing, bridge construction, all the things that we could do based on the limitations of the budget. But we could only reduce GHG emissions by 6%, and 6% is almost nothing, because the population is growing, the demand is growing for the vehicles, the traffic is increasing, the congestion is increasing. So even though with cleaner vehicles, with better fuels, still these GHG emissions, still we cannot deal with it. So the project was finished in 2015. After that, we started thinking, what can we do? We have to reduce the emissions by like 70%. So we looked at some very radical strategies. We tried to see what if we were not limited by budget, what if we could do whatever we wanted to do. Like we could build transit as much as we could. So can we achieve that goal that we have? So we looked at these 5 strategies, very compact development for the future, a huge additional gas tax, extensive transit improvement in the area, extensive bicycling improvement, and road capacity reduction. So we assumed that we're not limited by the politics, we're not limited by the budget. We just wanted to see, is it even possible to reduce GHG emissions but by the amount that we needed? So this is the area. We thought that, okay, for 2014, we want to focus the development of the area only in those areas that you see here, like downtown Albuquerque, around University of New Mexico and the Journal Center. So we focused the future development only in those areas, hoping that that might reduce the increased demand. So we found that we can reduce GHGs by about 25% by this very huge compact development. Then we looked at the gas tax, and this was actually very interesting. We found that if we add $2.5 per gallon of tax, that's of course huge, but that's one of the only things that can reduce GHG by, too much. But the problem is that, in the US, the gas price is like one of the cheapest in the world, except like Middle East, which gas is almost free. US is very cheap. That's why people are using, like, they're not using transit, they're using like their vehicles. So this was one of the most effective strategies. Then we looked at the transit. We assumed that we're not limited by the budget, so we added 2 other BRT lanes additional to central BRT lane. We reduced the headway by 90%, and we eliminated the transit fare totally. But still not much reduction, just 7% reduction. And the reason is that people still want to use their cars no matter how much transit is accessible. In cities like Albuquerque, it's so spread that people are more comfortable using their cars. Then we looked at the extensive bicycling improvement. Currently, only 1% of the population, 1% of the trips are made by bicycles in Albuquerque. But in some cities like Davis, 20% of the trips are made by bicycles. So we assumed that what if we had such a good bicycling facilities, bicycling facilities that we could achieve that 20% much like Davis. This was actually very effective. If 20% of trips are made by transit, we would have like 23% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. Then another strategy, we looked at what if we reduce the capacity of the highways, the roads, because if we have less lanes, people are more likely to choose other ways to travel, like walking, because of the traffic. Because of the increased traffic, people start using transit, walking, like bicycling. So we removed 1 lane from all of the lanes in the roadways in the area that have more than 1 lane. And then we modeled it. We modeled this scenario and we found that not very good. We would only have 3% reduction in GHG emissions. Finally, we decided to see what strategies do we need to meet that goal, of 70% reduction in GHG emissions. So that would be a combination of a lot of strategies, very extensive, like a huge compact future development, huge gas tax, extensive transit improvement, and road capacity reduction. All of these must be added together in order to just keep the GHGs in a way that we reduce the most severe impacts of climate change. So the conclusion is that current transportation planning in the US is so much limited by the budget and politics that there's no hope currently with the current business, like with what we're doing now. There's no hope to be able to meet that reduction in GHG emissions. I guess we need like a revolution in planning. We need something new that is beyond the abilities of us, academia. I guess it comes back to politicians and the decision makers. Thank you.
Thank you.